We're on the topic of duty. Welcome. And duty is about doing what has to be done, because there is a long time that you and I will live for a couple more years. And naturally, despite this presence of this knowledge, you have to still get things done. There will still be things to attend to. Krishna indicated this going into the world, being told, right, who you are, and it's okay. There's no punishment. There's no there's no naraka for you for, pursuing the Kauravas. Go and do what you have to do. So Krishna indicated this with the statement, get up. And it's a powerful statement, when we say to someone, get up, get off, do what you have to do, like get up. Now you've heard enough. Now you know what is to be done. Go and get up. And the reason why Krishna is saying this is because he says, Arjuna, your truth is free of this person called Arjuna. Your truth is free of this battle. Your truth is free of this life. Your truth is free of this universe. But while you are carrying this body and mind, there is an empirical person, right, that has to attend to their parts. And even if you recognize this truth or not, still, you and I, empirically, as a person, as a body-mind, are bound by certain laws. And this law was prominently brought out to be that law of destruction, which we call it Shiva. So Shiva is an aspect of Ishvara, the law which paves way for the new moment to come. So right now, every word gone. I say is being swiped away. See? So Shiva is right here and now, allowing every new moment to be removed, to give way to the new moment. So this is a privilege. If you look at, your life, everything you've ever accomplished was only because the old was removed. But now you are here as a new person with a new understanding, and thereby, when is Ishvara away from you? We often look for Ishvara out there. Oh, Ishvara, sometimes we shout, oh, hey, Ishvara, hear me. Just to recognize your life, to wake up and go to sleep. Ishvara is right here, right now, operable as this law, which is constantly providing you new opportunities to experience a new moment, to let go of that moment, experience and enjoy and appreciate the new moment. How much have you grown since 2 years, or since the last major event in your life? Remember the last major event in your life? Maybe, 2 or 3 years, or maybe since COVID 2020, how much have you grown? Can you recognize that? How much has your perception changed about yourself and your overall, participation in this world? It's amazing. So much has taken place. Not only that, but all of those setbacks in life have also contributed to your being here in this much more informed, more equanimous person. So we go through stages of growth, and then we go through this peak, and then there is a decline, and then there is a letting go of this body. This is the nature of the universe. Anything goes through growth, it goes through its peak, then there is a decline, and then it paves way for something new. In fact, you are that new because the previous generation have gone through growth, have gone through their peak, have gone through their decline, and have left this world. We too have gone through our growth, have reached our peak, will go through a decline, and will pave way for the next generation. This is the universe of Ishvara. This is Ishvara's laws. I cannot stop it, no matter what. We can write books, how to live to 100 years old. I've read several books like this, how to be very healthy and live up to 100 years old. And if you look at those authors, how long did they live? Not 100 years old. They lived average age. Sometimes I see was an interview of an old lady who was smoking like 3 cigarettes a day. And she was asked, what's the secret to your livelihood? And she says, just have a cigarette a day. Keeps the doctors away, right? So there's a much bigger loss here than just this, just eat well and stay healthy, which is all part of it, of course. But there is something much, much greater than just these simple statements of, take care of your body and whatever else they say, have a good lifestyle, okay? This is called laws. That means no one can cheat the laws. We can speak about the laws, try to manipulate them, but ultimately you're not above the laws. And thereby it's in my interest, your interest, to recognize these laws and to work with them, because it is in your benefit. And just like we learn to work with the laws of gravity, right? We study how gravity pulls objects down. So we have to create enough rocket fuel and rocket pressure to negate those effects, to send satellites into the orbit so that you and I can have GPS right now. This is all working with the laws. If someone's diabetic, for example, okay? Now, suppose that you ignore these laws and there's a person that's, diabetic. They're going through that time. Now, what's your choice? Well, we have two choices. I can either start complaining about this. Oh, I'm diabetic. I'm so unlucky and I cannot move. But is that going to help you? It's just going to make the problem worse, because now it's adding psychological additions on top of the physiological presence. But now if you go to a doctor, what would the doctor ask you? Say, I'm diabetic. What would a doctor ask you? Is anyone in your family diabetic? So now they want to work with the genetic laws. They want to see how is there a connection between one and the next. How is your lifestyle? How are you living? Is your emotional life well? And then you say, it's a little bit of anxiety. So what are they working with now? They're working with psychological laws. Then they will say, do you exercise? What are they working with now? What do they want to align your body with? Physiological laws. So now all of these laws, the doctor will look at. Is my body aligned with the psychological law? Is it working with the physiological law? Is it working with the law of just biology, just general food input? They're not complaining. They're working with the laws. So that's all you're really paying for when you go to the doctor. They just want to realign your body back with the laws, because that's their area of speciality. And when they give you a certain prescription or medication and you have that, then the body gets realigned gradually to its normal inputs, normal functioning, normal performance. Even though you're the truth of the universe, while you're wearing a body, can you say, is it wise to say I'm above the laws? Interesting, isn't it? On one hand, you are the truth of everything, of the whole thing, the laws, Ishvara, everything. That is your truth, Brahman. And yet, while there's a body living, what use is it saying I'm above the laws? When a person wakes up tomorrow, they still have a sore back, they still have a headache, they still have to eat, they still have to exercise, they still have to realign with the laws to feel good enough to say I am above the laws. See? So actually, while we are wearing this body, we're not above the laws. While working in this world with these laws, you will make mistakes, accidentally or sometimes out of mere ignorance. And sometimes we will also cross other people's boundaries, and they will cross our boundaries out of their own mistakes or their ignorance. This is a fact. Now, when you cross someone's boundaries without intending to, or they cross your boundaries, how do you know? Suppose someone crosses your boundaries. How do you know whether you're responding factually or objectively, or operating from an ego or sense of, I want to get them back, I want to show them?
Based on our response.
Okay, good answer. So reactive, that means I don't think before I act. It's just an automatic lashing out kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Versus the other is a little bit more thoughtful, a little bit more timely. There's some time involved. I'm, maybe asking a question or two.
The level of agitation in the mind, I can tell whether I am talking from my ego or am I just being at, base level and giving the response I should to the situation. The level of agitation in my mind, that tells me.
This is very good. So now we don't have to ask, how do I know if I have agitation in my mind? This is self-revealing information. So we all have this indicator in response in us that says whether, right, that moment when someone said something, or maybe in the past, maybe you don't have this anymore, and you just felt it. You felt it. It was like a knife, like a pierce. Maybe it's in the chest, it's the heart, maybe it's the warmth in the body. You feel it, and it's not pleasant. So you know that something has been touched. So now if I'm trying to do my duty and I keep on being triggered by this reaction, this reactive mode, could I do my duty in a pleasant, composed, professional manner? Could I? Not necessarily. It doesn't become very enjoyable, does it? Even though you're good in your work. There was a story to demonstrate this. One of the kids, he liked soccer. He was a young kid. And his father said to him, don't play soccer, right? Just go and I want you to be like an engineer or something. Just go and study. And as a child, you don't have that power to say no because your parents are, your guardians. So he developed this resentment, right? I want something. He disagrees with me, but I cannot say anything about it. So he developed this anger. Now, when he grew up at work, he found himself in a position of a manager. So he had this time where whenever he listened to his his team had different ideas, and whenever someone disagreed with him, even though it was objective and it was more informed response than his own response or his own idea, he got triggered. He became angry. And he found this very disturbing because he knew rationally that this is a much better idea than my own. And yet his duty was constantly being intercepted through his own reactivity. So now the question is, how do you deal with this? You know rationally that it's not a intelligent response. And yet, how do you approach this?
Is one method of dealing with those sort of situations understanding that the relationship or the circumstance, the other person, it's all Ishvara. And so to some extent, you're putting it into a perspective that allows you to take some objectivity of the situation and then analyze how you're reacting to it, analyze how the other person's responding, but know that there's potentially a lesson in it.
If something happens, then I immediately bring the laws. This is, after all, I don't have control over what kind of response you get. You can either get more of than you expected. You can get less of than you expected. You can get equal to expected or exactly as you wanted. Now, we usually want only the first two, right? We only want, I got exactly as I wanted, and I got more. That's a bonus, isn't it? But life isn't made to provide you these first two. It also has to give you, not has to, but it also provides you the other two. I got less than I expected, and I got totally opposite than I thought I would. This is a fact. So this means if I ignore the laws, the fact that laws are unbiased, they're impartial, they're not made to make me happy. They're just working unbiased, impartial, and facilitating all forms to interact in these laws. And if I want these laws to realign themselves so that I can get more of and exactly as I want it, then you're not working with the laws. That's living in a constant stress mode, always worried about what's going to happen, in fear, in a state of caution, in a state of suspicion, in a state of always being a perfectionist. I have to get it all perfect. Why? Because I'm obsessed with getting it exactly as I want or more of. And there is simply no enjoyment in this kind of a life. So this is where we try to control these laws, but in actuality, it's not possible. So good answer. In other words, I'm working with these laws. Now, one thing that I want to point out is some time ago brought up an interesting thing. He said, how do I work with this with the clients? Suppose I'm working with clients and the clients are having some, or you're having some, some triggering, you get triggered while doing your duty. Now, I talked about CBT. CBT is one of the most popular psychological models to help patients. And in this model, what they found out is there are several most common patterns that we experience that no one's exempt from while doing our part. And I want to go with these methods with you and see which one if any, you fall for. So the point here is just to mention it. We're not trying to sort of fix them, just to get to know about it. That is almost half the job done. When responding to situations, there's a tendency for what's called all or nothing thinking. All or nothing. It's either it's bad or it's good. It's thinking in absolutes. For example, if I am not at the top, then I'm a failure. All or nothing thinking. If you're not coming, I'm not going. Black or white. So there's no in-betweens. There's no different options. I'll give you a story, for example. In Ramayana, right, when the Dasharatha, who was having a coronation for Rama's kingship, and he was approached by Kaikeyi, and Kaikeyi, the day before Rama's coronation as a king, she said to him, I want you to fulfill me 2 boons, which you owe me. And she said, the first boon is that Rama is to go to the forest, your son is to go to the forest for 14 years. And the second is that my son is the king. Now, what did the Dasharatha do in this case? He succumbed, right? He succumbed. He gave this offer. But what options were available for him, if you think about it? What could have he done instead?
He didn't have any options.
He didn't have any. Okay, see, initially it seemed like he didn't have any options. So this is all or nothing thinking. But he did. I challenge you and I say he did. What other options did he have?
Could have negotiated a better deal.
Excellent. He could have negotiated a better deal. He could have, for example, said, okay, you want your son Bharata to be the king. Fine. But let's go ask the subjects of Ayodhya. What do they think? Because I'm not, I'm here, I'm just a representative of Ayodhya. I'm not the ruler. I'm not the one with the final word. The subjects ultimately have their say. So let's go and ask them, what do they think? Hey, Bharata is on one option, Rama is on the other option.
Oh, yeah.
The subjects would have naturally chosen Rama because Rama was already loved by Ayodhya. What else could have he done?
He could have said, okay, let's wait for Bharat to come.
Let's wait for Bharat to come. Do you actually want to be the king? No, I want my brother to be the king. Problem solved. He could have called a family and said, let's all sit together. Kaikeyi wants Bharat to be the king. What do the rest of us think? Because we're all in this together. There's no one who's ruler of any position. That would have said, right? That would have made a deal.
But
So
he had to uplift his honor of keeping his word, which is why he gave her the word and there was no alternative.
Yeah, see, it is, he was keeping his word, but at the same time, just because he's keeping his word, it also offers you an extra option of negotiating for the greater whole. Because if you keep your word like what's his name? Bhishma. Bhishma in this case, he wants to protect the Hastinapur at all cost. But has he considered, what if I'm protecting a Hastinapur where the king is adharmic, right? I have in any moment the chance to say, I no longer want to stand for this. So there is some rigidity. Taking this dharmic value at a rigid level, it becomes extremely, rigid. For example, you have, when you take, for example, cultural values as dharma. Is cultural values dharma?
No.
No, not necessarily. Because you got things like cannibalism, things like stoning people, things like, all these things that you cannot call dharmic. So just because it is within an agreement of the nation, an agreement of the family, an agreement of the king and his wife, just because it's within the agreement doesn't make it a universal ethical value that is in the interest of all of the subjects, not just 2 people that have negotiated the deal. I will fulfill your wishes no matter what. He could have said, yes, I do own you 2 wishes. But at the same time, I am not the only person here. There are lives that are at stake. Therefore, I have to include other people's well-being also. Therefore, we cannot take dharma. We cannot take dharma as this rigid thing. If someone comes up to you and they're running from someone that wants to hurt them, and they say, knock on your door, can you please let me in? I need to hide from this, thief. And you offer them the space, you hide them because you already know them well, suppose. And then the thief knocks on your door, they have a gun, and they say, have you seen this guy? Have you seen him? Are you going to say, yeah, he's right behind the door, he's hiding, come in. You're going to do that? Because that is dharmic, isn't it? Or is it? In other words, dharma is not black or white. I'm going to say, no, I have not seen him because I want to protect my friend. And this thief, he's got wrong ideas about, about my friend. So I'm going to lie to protect. So in that same way, dharma has a certain dynamism about it. Okay? Black or white thinking. Next one is discounting positives. The positives don't matter. You don't see any positives, you just discount them. For example, your boss tells you, you are, he compliments you on your work, on your behavior. And you say, it's just a fluke. My boss is just saying that to keep me at the job. Or someone that's close to you, they genuinely see some option, some quality in you that they admire, and they compliment you. And then you say, yeah, okay, whatever, right? You just sort of brush it away. Why are you doing that? What is this block that's making me not accept and appreciate that indeed there is some good quality of me that I can take a moment to acknowledge? Unfair comparisons. This is where you're comparing yourself to something whose standards are way below or way above yours. Such as, I saw a post by this woman or this, this family with all smiley faces, they're all hugging, perfect life, right? A pet, it's all there. And you look at this post and you go, they got such a better life than mine. There was a lady I watched on YouTube very early when the social media started to come. She had friends. This was in America. She had many friends around her. And when social media came, it caught on. She noticed her friends posting all these happy pictures of their family, but she knew them personally for years. And the images that were being portrayed on the social media were so different than how she knew them. And she was she picked this up and she was posting a video how superficial we create these images. And then others start to compare to these fake images. And then it creates these complexes in us. Unfair comparisons. This is one of the biggest things today on social media. You're always looking who's got more, who's better looking, who's who's prettier, who's richer, who's getting more students, who's getting more attention. You go to an event, right? And you know what we're looking at? We're looking at, okay, who's sitting in the VIP chair? It's like, come on. What does that have to do anything with you? You came there to learn. Who are the rich people? Who's sitting in the VIP chair? Oh, why are you talking to the teacher? What's so special about them that they're talking? I should be talking. Unfair comparison, unrealistic comparison, always gauging myself in respect to some imaginary value or something in the world.
But only emotionally insecure people do that.
I mean, it's, we all do it at some, if you just look at your own, experience, we all do it somewhere a little bit here and there. We could be equally intelligent and we could be very emotionally mature in many areas, but in this particular area, we still compare ourselves a little bit. We compare, he or she's got something that I would like to have. I want to speak as good as they speak. I want to, be funny like they're funny. So again, it's not just a matter of, only these people do it, only those people do it. We all do it if we're 100% honest, and it's very hard to catch at one level or the other. I was even doing this with, my teacher. I thought, man, she's so good. She's such a great teacher. I want to be like that. I'm not like her, and, I want to be like her. And this doesn't make you feel good at all. Until one day I said, this is an unhealthy behavior. In fact, the name of this is unhealthy thinking patterns. I thought this is an unhealthy behavior. I'm here to learn, not to compare myself to the very person who's teaching me. So if we're 100% honest, we will catch ourselves doing these unhealthy patterns. The next one is mind reading. This is where you assume that you know what the person is thinking. So before they finish the sentence, you already complete the sentence for them because you are so in tune with them. Let me just confidently do that. And this can, for example, he didn't talk to me. Therefore, it means, he's angry, or she's not talking with me. She's not looking at me. She didn't hug me today. Therefore, she's not attracted to me today. Should statements. This is whereby you criticize yourself because you should be doing this, or you must be doing this. I should have not made this mistake. I must get this right. I must understand this. I should have known better than to make this mistake. So now, who are you? Are you Ishvara, that you should have known better? Are you supposed to know everything all the time? No way. There will never be a moment where we'll know everything all the time. So how can you give yourself these rules? I should understand this. I should, be waking up early, 4 a.m. in the morning. According to whom? All these rules that have been set up. You should be this person. You should do this. I'm like, what kind of a life is that? Where's the authenticity arising out of my own? Is this my own motivation, or is this something that I've learned from someone else?
If you don't have the should, how do you train to be, or how do you discipline yourself?
Sure. So good. So discipline is necessary naturally. Now, when it becomes an unhealthy thing, so we're talking about healthy shoulds and unhealthy shoulds. When it's a healthy, is you just remind yourself, hey, get up because it is to be done. It is going to, start my day fresh. It's going to, make me feel good about myself, that I was able to wake up on time and do my protocol. But then throughout the day, these circumstances come where we make it unfair for ourselves, as if I'm supposed to get all perfect, get it all right every single time. But that's just not possible, because no one has all knowledge. No one has all power. So everyone will make mistakes, will fall down, and then we need to get up. Now, when you fall down, that's when you apply the should statement. I should get up.
Louise Hay says, instead of should statements, use the word could. Change it to could.
Yeah, could. Good. I could do this. Is this what is needed to be done in this moment? Is this my priority right now? For what is my intention for doing this? So now you're using a lot more depth, a lot more thinking behind the intention of your statement, rather than just superficial, I could or I should. Because could or should is very memorized. It's a memorized instruction, kind of like telling a dog, giving them a bone or a little sign, and then a dog gets up. Dog should get up. Dog should sit down. So it's very mechanical. But if you turn it into a thinking mode, you say, what is the intention behind my action? Is this action keeping with what is it that I treasure in life? Is it getting me there closer, or is it farther away, pushing me farther away? So in that case, you become more discerning. Otherwise, I'm not saying the should or could are, irrelevant. They have their place. But I'm just pointing out the potential of catching ourselves with these statements. Then there is fortune telling. This is where we think we can predict the future. And we think that the future that we're predicting is bad. So we could say things like, this is never going to work. How do you know it's never going to work? Fortune telling. You predict the future, and whatever you predicted, it's usually a bad scenario. And then we convince ourselves, no, it's not going to work because, and then you're probably going to access the past memory and say, because it hasn't worked in the past, so it's not going to work in the future. So catch yourself. When are you fortune telling? No, I'm not going to get this knowledge because, oh, really? So how, you already unfolded your path, huh? 5 years ago, could you have ever imagined that your path will be what it is today? 5 years ago? If not 5, then maybe 10. Remember 10 years ago, how different you were, hopefully. That means you've grown. So different. It's like no comparison. There is some, but it's so much growth. So now imagine 10 years ago, 5 years ago, you said, you know, in 5 years, I will be this person that I am today. But there's no comparison, not at all. Then labeling. Labeling is assigning a negative trait onto yourself. And labeling is actually a extreme version of overgeneralizing. So you say things like, I'm a loser because I can't get anything right. You know, I can't get this, therefore I can't get anything else. Where we label ourselves, we label our abilities, we label other people. Suppose someone makes a mistake, and then we instantly assign one little label and slap it onto them, onto their, or paper it over the person. So we have a highly dynamic person who's brilliant in many areas, and they make a little mistake in one area, and then we label them, the entire person, including all of those brilliant skills that you would have been inspired by had you been in a different circumstance for them to show you and shine those other brilliant characteristics of theirs. Where have we decided to put this well-ascertained conclusion and hold it dear and near to us? Where is that? And where are we putting these well-made labels, which are not well-made at all? They're really incomplete. And where are we putting them onto whom? Who is it in our lives that we're putting them onto? And where are these labels do they commonly get put onto? Usually there's a person where you put the same labels every single time, the same label. So this means that there's someone close to you and you have already decided who they are. And yet this person, who they are, is actually a flexible, dynamic person. They have many facets. How do you prove this? You just put them in a different environment. They will show you things you've never seen before. No, you're not a dancer, you're not fun. Yeah, show them next to a different kind of a person in a different kind of a room, and they will start dancing, and they will be fun, and they will be talkative, and they will be creative. That's the truth. We are all flexible like this. You just need to put the person in the right environment. And yet I've decided to put a label onto this person. And what do you do then? You prevent them. You invoke the irrational person out of them. Because the label is irrational. My label is irrational. When I put an irrational label onto the person, I invoke the irrational person from them. And that makes communication impossible. And you say, how can you say this? And you think it's their thing, it's their projection, but it's not their projection. They're just responding irrationally because I am talking irrationally to them out of my own labels. Go ahead.
Does it matter if the label is what could be negative or positive?
So, yeah. I mean, you can initially, if the label is negative, then, that puts them in this light of a bad person or someone that's not capable or they'll never get it. Then sometimes you can apply a positive label to negate that, direct opposite, to help you break out of that pattern. Because the truth is, because people pick it up, they pick it up through your body language, through your voice, how you approach them, and they sense it. And they cannot even explain, why do I feel so confined when I'm next to you? Why do I feel so closed off? Why can I not be myself when I'm next to you? And the answer is not always because they're a close person, but because look at your own labels. What unconscious labels am I possibly projecting? Have I already decided to establish onto my mom, my dad, my brother, my sister, my wife, my spouse, my children, which in the presence of my own body, they feel this and they cannot even explain it because it's very hard to pick it up, but they sense it. And they're like, I don't know what to say. I can't be myself. It means that I have to get my own labels checked up. What labeling am I putting onto this person, if any? This is a little inquiry that we can go through. Where am I putting labels onto people, onto the world, onto the politicians? And are they absolutely true? The answer is never yes. They're always subjective. They're always relative to one area, but they're never absolute. Now imagine this. You want to understand oneness. All that is here is one. All that is here is Ishvara, as Michael said. And yet, one half of the brain is going, all that is here is Ishvara. What's the other half of the brain going? You're no good. You're incompetent. You're a loser. They'll never get it. And yet, the other half of the brain, all that is here is Ishvara. Is that going to work well? One half of the brain, I'm fortune telling. I am overgeneralizing. I am feeling like a small, insecure person. The other half of the brain is going, I'm Brahman. No wonder one can be in this spiritual search for so many years and go, it's not working, I'm not capturing this knowledge. Because the unconscious mind is running through these unhealthy patterns and it's constantly negating this knowledge. You sincerely want to know that all that is here is Ishvara, but on the other hand, the mind is sabotaging through these unhealthy patterns. And that's why I'm mentioning them, just to hear them and get them pointed out. That is half the battle done already. The next one is catastrophizing. This is where you interpret events in the worst case scenario. So, for example, you say, I used to do this when I was a child. Whenever my dad was late 5 minutes from work, I thought there's a car crash. He's somewhere in a car crash. Or your kids are late. Oh, they probably got mugged by someone. They probably got stuffed in a car. They got kidnapped. The plane hasn't landed. Oh, the plane probably crashed. Catastrophizing. That means I take a future event, I predict it, and I put the worst case possible inside that little bubble. And then when the person finally arrives, then how are you now? You're now primed according to this bubble that we've created. And now we respond to them according to the labels and according to the catastrophizing that we spent 15 minutes thinking about. And they pick it up. Aren't you excited to see me? No, I thought you were dead. Oh, I thought the plane crashed. I thought you were in a car crash. Oh, like, what's wrong with you? I've been okay for 30, 40 years. And I'm just 5 minutes late and now you're worried. So it puts pressure. This was like a big thing in my family, you know. Whenever I was late, my mom comes back, oh, son, are you okay? Don't leave the house. There's danger outside. And oh my goodness. And still I get always messages every week. How are you, son? From both mom and dad. I've been okay for 40 years. Why? How is one more week going to make any difference? Oh, you bought an electric bike, son? Oh, careful. These things I heard are very dangerous. You know, they go very fast. Come on. Oh, you bought a scooter? Oh, you know, scooters, you know, someone's going to hit you on the side of the road. Always catastrophizing. Worst case scenario. So you put your son and you go broken limbs, broken legs, you know, the car has hit him. And there's just no peace in this kind of a mentality. So we can maybe release this. I know it's hard, but this is another pattern.
I've sometimes run into people, and I've had problems with some members of my family that do this. They always think the worst. Oh, well, there's been a bad forest fire through here. These trees might fall down at us. We shouldn't drive in there. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, that's like a 1 in a billion. Just, you know, we'll see it up ahead and we'll dodge it or something. That won't happen. You know, and you know, it's like it's making fun of that other person in a way, and it's like downplaying their fears when you're like real positive and like
Yeah.
kind of just sort of don't really worry. You know, you kind of just figure, well, what are the odds? I'll go ahead and go for it.
Yeah. So just,
you have to be a little bit careful about that, I'll tell you.
yeah, you can. And the best time to catch yourself is right at the start. That's when you begin, you catch yourself, I'm catastrophizing, stop. That's the moment to stop. Ask yourself, what real evidence do I have to support this? The answer is none, absolutely none. And equally, they could be having the best time ever. So if I cannot prove either, then why am I choosing to catastrophize rather than to see them, you know, having a lovely time? Why am I choosing the option when they're in danger when they could equally be very safe? So this means it becomes a subjective pattern. It's got nothing to do with reality. It's got to do something about concern, something about anxiety, something has to do with your own thinking.
Well, bad things can always happen.
That's equally a fact as much as good things. More of, less of, equal to, or opposite. All four options are possible. And then negative filtering. Negative filtering. This is where we filter out all positives. So suppose you say, you know, my entire day has been absolutely awful and nothing good happened. Is that true? Your entire day has been awful and nothing good happened. That means I've filtered out all positives throughout the day and only chose to be selective about the negatives. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you fell down, maybe the milk got spilled, something happened. And then the entire day was awful. Filtering out positives. How can one possibly be happy in this kind of a pattern? Okay. Filtering out the positives in an event like this. You know, only this happened. Or with a friend, you meet with a friend, and suppose they had some quirks, and then you separate, and then you kind of assess your day with your friend or your family, and then you just only take all the positives out. Makes a complaining human being. And then self-blame. Self-blame is where we take responsibility for things that are beyond our control. Wanting to take things into our hands where realistically it is not in your hands. Saying things like, it is my fault because this relationship has ended. It's my fault. Is it really your fault? Are you always 100%, to blame? Or was there also another side involved to it? There's always another side involved. So to say that, I should have been there, that's why they died. They died because I should have been there for them. I was not there for them. That's why they're like this. I was not there for them. The fact is, you also have your own life. To think like this is just not realistic. Because you have limited resources and you have limited time. So you cannot always be there for someone. And besides, if you did choose one option over the other, what evidence do you have that that the fourth option would have helped? Because often we think, I should have done this, I didn't do this. What evidence do you have that if you did do that other option, it would have actually been better? No evidence at all. So when we blame ourselves is we often say, I should have, I haven't done enough. I haven't done what I should have done. Well, again, I don't have any evidence that if I did do that, it would have worked out. Then there is blaming others. Blaming others is opposite. It's taking, instead of taking personal responsibility, it is choosing a way to offload responsibility for the sake of making it easier to cope with this unpleasant situation. So this means that, for example, my parents, or they're the cause of all problems. Because I went to a public school, it's cause of all my problems. Because I didn't grow up in this culture, it's the culture's fault. Blaming others. In other words, always offloading. It's someone else that caused me this situation. That's not true. Because at any moment, you actually have more control than you think. That is over our thinking. That's where our control is, over our patterns.
So is it like in between self-blame and blaming others? Is it more just taking responsibility for what you're responsible for?
Yes. So
one of us.
Good, Alice. So knowing where is my part, where can I do my part? And when you do your part, let go of the results. Because the moment I let go of, this pen, for example, where is my free will? It's in dropping this pen. The moment I release it, that's where your free will ends. That's when I need to release the results. We call this later on in chapter 12, karma palatyaga. I renounce the results to Ishvara's laws. From that moment on, I cannot be more or less responsible. Where was the responsibility? Here. responsibility gone. So this means all of the thinking, all of the assessing is right here. The moment you let it go, then to say, oh, this happened, one of those 4 results happened. Now, I'm blaming myself. But the fact is, you had all of the control right here. Therefore, there's no logic to blame yourself once you let the results go, because you've already thought through your actions well. You say, hey, I have already thought through my actions. I've done to the best that I could at that time. So there's no space to blame. The next one is overgeneralizing. Overgeneralizing is seeing a negative pattern in a few events, and then based on those few events, you generalize. For example, my past friend betrayed me. Therefore, all friends I cannot trust anymore. So there's something happened, a few moments of unpleasantness happened in the past. And then based on that data, I then assume any future event will be exactly like that, because you already decided what's going to happen based on what happened before. So the question is then, where am I taking the past and coloring in the present? With whom? With what? How about learning? This is maybe a good example. I haven't figured out, suppose, what happened. I couldn't figure out that thing in the past. Therefore, I'm not going to be able to figure this out. I failed at school. Therefore, I'm going to fail at this. But the truth is, times have changed. You have changed. You have learned so many new things. Everything has changed. So the past has no correlation to the present. Very little.
Which sloka are we covering this?
So this is leading up to verse 38. And you'll see how I will tie this with verse 38. So the question here is that while doing my duty, get up, Arjuna, get up. Now, suppose Arjuna gets up. Then the question was then, what kind of obstacles am I not going to be faced when I do get up and I do my duty? And that's what we're covering now. Kind of obstacles such as these patterns. The last one is emotional reasoning. You judge the world based on your, quote, gut feeling. I feel bad vibes about this person. Therefore, I'm right. So there's no empirical evidence at all. You go entirely by emotional reasoning, and that becomes your gospel. So rather than saying, I have bad vibes about this person, which is extremely judgmental, rather one can say, I don't feel comfortable right now. I don't know why, but I don't feel comfortable. So we make it more personal rather than more sort of, I have bad vibes about you, about this person, because it labels them. Someone here who doesn't have any of these patterns? We all have one or more of these patterns, okay? Therefore, we can turn our prayers now, Lord Shiva, the force of destruction, help me to remove shouldisms or mind reading or discounting positives or catastrophizing or negative filtering or self-blame or blaming others or overgeneralizing. There's so much to work with here. Now, suppose you have addressed these negative patterns relatively well. We're not going to address all of them for it doesn't how long you live. You're never going to address all of them. But suppose you've gotten enough work on yourself. Now, the next question is then, by what criteria do I do my duty? Now that I've taken away the unhealthy patterns out of my duty, what is the guiding criteria to do my duty? So this is where verse 38 will continue. Verse 38. Sukha dukhe same kritva labha labhao jaya jayao tato yudhaya yujyaswa naivam papam avapsyasi.
Taking pleasure and pain, gain and loss, victory and defeat to be the same. Prepare for battle. Thus you will gain no sin.
So the question in verse 38 is, what is the universal criteria that every person does their duty? And Krishna says it is three criteria that guides you and I. It is sukha dukkha. In other words, I want to see myself happy and avoid being unhappy. Yes? Is this how we make criteria? Absolutely. Does someone choose by wanting to be unhappy in the duties? Absolutely not. Then he says, labha alabha. In other words, when doing my duty, I want the highest gain possible. So I want to be as happy as possible. I want the highest gain as possible. And I want jaya and then ajaya. Ajaya means I don't want to be victorious, but which is what nobody wants. I want jaya. I want to be victorious. So I want happiness. I want highest gain possible. And I want to be victorious. 3 universal criteria by which every person does every action in this world. Nobody does things to be unhappy, to be a loser, and to gain as little gain as possible. Nobody. If you go by these 3 criteria, it is not enough. Because did Duryodhana go by these 3 criteria? He did. Duryodhana didn't, try to, he didn't go about his ways to be unhappy. He didn't go about his ways to be not victorious. He didn't go about his ways to gain as little as possible. So Arjuna goes by these 3 criteria. Duryodhana goes by these 3 criteria. So can you now say that these 3 criteria are enough? Everyone goes by these 3 criteria. Dictator goes by these 3 criteria. Everyone wants to be happy. Everyone wants to gain victory. Everyone wants to get as much as possible. If you just go by these 3 criteria, that's not enough, because we have these 2 extremes. One extreme is we say, for example, I'm going to serve you. I'm going to do what I can for you. But in this extreme, you forget about yourself. That means you give to other people, but you forget about yourself. You forget about your own needs. The other extreme is that you say, I'm going to do whatever I want. I don't care about the results. These 2 extremes we see anywhere in this world. Both extremes are trying to be happy, be victorious, and get as much as possible. Doesn't work. So you need a guidance system, which is called dharma, samanya dharma. I need a guidance system by which I recognize that in so my doing to be happy, to be victorious, to gain as much as possible, I know one fact for sure. I don't want to be hurt. And I also know the person that you interact with doesn't want to be hurt either. That's my guiding criteria. So Krishna is not asking us to not be happy. He's not saying be dukkha, be alabha, be ajaya, don't be victorious. He's saying absolutely, that's your guiding criteria. But ensure that your actions don't cause harm to others. While you're attempting to be happy, while you're trying to gain the best, most possible victory, while you're trying to get the highest possible gain. Don't forget that your actions are within the laws, and the laws are impersonal. They always return results in keeping with the qualities of your actions. So if I do my actions that are slightly damaging to those around me, then this feedback system comes back to me and shows me those consequences. Verse 39 would change topic into karma yoga. And then we'll see how duty ties in with karma yoga. Verse 39. Esha te bhihita sankhye buddhir yoge twimam shrnu buddhya yukto yaya partha karma bandham prahasyasi.
This wisdom with reference to self-knowledge has so far been told to you. Now, Partha, Arjuna, listen also to the wisdom of yoga, endowed with which you will get rid of the bondage of action.
So Krishna is making a introduction into a huge topic of the Gita, which is karma yoga, which is also duty, but there's a certain attitude by which you perform your duty in karma yoga. But before we get to the attitude part, I want to first say that in this verse, he mentions 2 particular words, Sankhya and yoga. So Sankhya, in other words, the Bhagavad Gita is divided into 2 sections, and it appeals to 2 kinds of seekers. The first kind of seeker is the one who wants Sankhya. This is not Sankhya school of philosophy. This just means self-knowledge. So that means it appeals to those who want the big picture. I want to know, for example, the nature of the jiva. What is my purpose while living on this world? What is it that is to be accomplished while living? What is the highest purpose to do while living? How do I live in this world? And this was talked about in verse 11 to 30, where we talked about jiva's intrinsic nature, right? Atma. It also talks about jiva's duty, which we just finished between verse 31 to 38. So now that the jiva recognizes its intrinsic nature as Atma, then while living, what is my actual duty? This is verse 31 to 38, which we completed. And what is duty? We said duty consists of two primary words. The first word is swadharma. So swadharma means that everyone comes into this world connected to situations and people, different kinds. And every situation and person demands a unique kind of response. So this means I have a certain people have different expectations out of you, depending on who they are. And I have to play those expectations, those roles, in order to maintain good relations. Now, while you're performing these good relations, swadharma is also about not being taken for a ride, about your emotional, not being taken away emotionally while you're interacting with these people who are close to you. Because it's those who are dear and near to us who can trigger us emotionally in our roles. So this means I have to retain a certain composure, a certain equanimity, a certain objectivity while doing my roles and my duties with particular roles with the particular people. This is swadharma. However, as we just said in the last verse, this swadharma, which is always based on what will make me happy, what will make me victorious, and what will give me most, it has to be guided by samanya dharma. Samanya dharma means universal ethical values. And every time your mind slips, what do? You bring your mind gently back into the universal ethical values, which means I want to minimize the amount of hurt that I cause onto you and the amount of hurt that is caused onto me. Now, a common question, by the way, in the Gita is this. If Krishna is the Lord, and the Lord is impersonal and unbiased, why was Krishna on the Pandava side? That sounds like he's choosing, like he's biased.
Because dharma is on the Pandava side.
Exactly. And Krishna himself is a manifestation of dharma. So it's not like Krishna was just innocently, right, favoring the Pandavas. Pandavas were on Krishna's side. Therefore, they had Krishna by his side. And that's why Pandavas won, because Krishna are the laws. And whoever is working with the laws, whoever is working with Krishna, wins the war, is victorious in this battlefield of life. That's why Pandavas won. Okay? Therefore, Krishna represents Samanya Dharma. If I'm on the side of Samanya Dharma, then I ultimately am victorious in life. I come to this knowledge. Ishvara ultimately removes the veil of ignorance, and you are now eternally grateful. Not because you were randomly blessed this, because you were on Krishna's side. You were on the side of Dharma, like the Pandavas. Okay? Therefore, Jiva's intrinsic nature and Jiva's duty. This is Jiva. The second pillar of Vedanta is Jagat. So this is the nature of the world. And what am I to do while living in this world? And the third pillar of Vedanta is Ishvara. What is the cause of the universe? And Ishvara does not exclude Brahman, because they're not two different things. So you can't say, what about Brahman, Andre? Therefore, three pillars: Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara. Okay. So this is all Sankhya, self-knowledge. So what does self-knowledge deal with? Jiva, Jagat, and Ishvara. That is for one kind of seeker. Another kind of seeker, in fact, there's no two kinds of seekers, we need both. The second is yoga. Yoga is preparing your mind to capture this knowledge, to understand it, to ascertain it well. It is the knowledge that helps you deal with life challenges, that helps you to incorporate this knowledge throughout the modern life. How do I incorporate this self-knowledge, this Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara, and let it percolate in modern day context? Yoga. And through karma yoga, what happens? You develop virtues, you develop patience, you develop all of those qualities necessary to firmly capture this knowledge deeply. And Krishna in this verse says, this knowledge of karma yoga will ultimately liberate you because it will remove ignorance, ajnana, and it will, in fact, it's not going to remove ignorance, it's going to dissolve ignorance, because only self-knowledge can remove ignorance. So it's going to shake up these notions. It's going to dissolve a lot of mini ignorances, but only self-knowledge can remove the final ignorance of the nature of I. So it's going to dissolve ignorance, and it's going to dissolve or weaken the sense of kartritvam, the sense of doership, the sense of individuality, the person, the me, the mine, for the sense of I am different from you. So this has to be shaken up. And this is what karma yoga helps us. It helps us to convert every ordinary action into an opportunity to get your life together. So it's a lovely practice that converts all of your actions into a spiritual practice without changing any actions whatsoever. So it's lovely. There's nothing to change. There's nothing to do new. There's no things of, hey, here's what to do. Go and do breathing. Go and do meditation. None of this. Do exactly what you're doing now. No change whatsoever. Just through a certain attitude, through a certain practice called karma yoga, all of actions become yoga. That's why it's called karma, action. They become yoga. They become spiritual practice. Actions turn into a spiritual practice, karma yoga. What is the purpose of karma yoga? It is specifically for antahkarana shuddhi, purifying the mind, making the mind more compatible for the knowledge. Okay? And in verse 40, Krishna is going to now praise karma yoga. Verse 40, Neha bhi kramana shosti pratyavayo na vidyate swalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat.
In this, there is no waste of effort, nor are the opposite results produced. Even very little of this karma yoga protects one from great fear.
Now let's see what Krishna says about karma yoga. He says there is no failure when you take to this, what he calls now buddhi yoga. Buddhi yoga is also called karma yoga, but it's a nice name. Buddhi yoga in this verse just means you're engaging your intellect. I'm not just mindlessly now doing things out of mechanical, but there's a certain process that's going on through your intellect that makes these actions a spiritual practice. Okay? So this buddhi yoga is actually called karma yoga. And it says that, it as a result of bringing more, divinity into your life, your fears, your intolerance, impatience, anger, all of this will help be dissolved. And you'll become more cheerful, more enthusiastic, more patient, more capable of recognizing the presence of Ishvara in all things. And then he says, no failure is possible. That's an interesting statement, isn't it? How do you make the most mundane action not a failure action, but an action of success? How is this possible? How can I turn brushing my teeth, the most ordinary action, into a spiritual practice?
It's because it's focused on attitude.
It's focused on attitude. Good mental attitude. Okay. Anything else?
Actually, focus while doing focus on the action that you're doing.
In karma yoga, you're not going to be beholden to the result. So every result is a success essentially.
Yes, this is part of karma yoga. Good. We're yet to get to that. Okay. Gautam?
Yeah, the same thing. Because your intention is to do what you're doing well. And what is the result? You are not very interested how the result comes out to be.
So he says that karma yoga, first of all, redefines what it means to be, quote, spiritual. Now, what is spiritual in a traditional sense? It is, there's many things, right? So I'm not going to overgeneralize. But one big section of spirituality is being passive, disenchanted with the world. The world is too much. It's too hard. It's unenthusiastic, not very proactive at all, retreating, and being in one's little world, or the spiritual world, a little community, a little spiritual community. Karma yoga redefines this completely. Karma yoga says to be spiritual, you're actually a contributor in this world. You're very much active like anyone else. You're doing your part. You're sharing your skills, your abilities. And through that, there's a certain attitude by which you convert the most mundane thing into a most, much more intimate, something that's more intimate. You're closer to Ishvara in all of your mundane actions. Therefore, you become engaged, curious, proactive. No more retrieval mode, withdrawn, staying away from people. This is just not what spirituality is about at all. This is one of those negative patterns manifesting in different ways. He also says the word success. The word success has to be redefined. Suppose I ask the question, what is a distorted version of success? Like, how do we understand success usually in the common parlance? Be successful.
Material gain.
Material gain, what else?
Be the top of your field.
Be ahead of others.
The world has to comply according to what I want. Be popular, right? Make sure that your efforts are seen by others.
Be very happy.
Be very happy. And how is that working out? Be very happy. So many books are written this, right? And you look at the authors, they're ordinary people. They wrote the book, How to Be Happy. Fame and fortune, yeah. So it's more of the lines of what we say, the material gain, and the people and the world has to behave how I want it to behave. Then I am successful. I'm getting what I want every day. I'm attracting what I want. There's an agenda. Every action is a means to some other future agenda. So I'm never in the moment. I'm always living in some future event, some future agenda. We cannot call this success. So in this case, if this is the version of success, then every effort is a waste, because it went for what? It only went for, oh, now I've gotten this. What else can I gain? So it only becomes right? Who is gaining the benefits? Some future person? What about this person now? Okay. So we have to change the definition of the word, what it means to be successful. And Krishna redefines this in Karma Yoga. He says that no matter what comes to you in your life, challenges, ups and downs, no matter what comes to you today, not tomorrow, starting from today, it is an opportunity for growth. It's an extraordinary opportunity to learn. Your whole life now becomes a learning platform. Now, if your whole life becomes a chance to look into your responses, to convert one of those unhealthy thinking patterns that we talked about into something that's more thoughtful, every opportunity now gives you that, because you are switched on. You're allowing yourself for all mistakes to be your teachers. You're allowing all challenges, all setbacks to be your teachers. Then can any effort be a failure? No. Instantly, one thing I changed: attitude. I changed life from what life needs to be to appease me into life is my teacher. And through my participation, I get to learn, and evolve and grow. Therefore, you reattach the meaning to what it means to be successful. We talked about last week, right, about Viktor Frankl, who was in the Nazi concentration camps in Auschwitz. He was a psychiatrist, and he observed that it is not the physical strength nor better circumstances that made people survive in those concentration camps. It was not how big you were or that you were working in a better area, because everyone was treated equally. Rather, it was the mental attitude and your ability to attach a meaning on what it means to be in this environment. What does it mean that I am in this terrible situation? And the meanings that people attach who survived were things like, this is a test of my strength in God. This is a test for me to go through this time and to come back and do works, some greater works when I'm out of this. I have someone to love. I have more work to do. My work is unfinished. I have someone to help. It's all mental attitude. It's not physical circumstances that they were better, even though it does contribute, but it was not that. It was more of what meaning do I give life? So the question is, what meaning are you giving to life? Life is hard. It's a battlefield. It's there to get me. It's unfair. It's biased. It doesn't like me. It gives me a hard time. Where is success in this kind of a meaning attached to life? So we have to redefine the meaning. Life becomes a friend to teach me so that I can cross this ocean of ignorance.
Samsara.
In fact, there's nothing to cross because the whole thing is Ishvara. So that was a provisional statement, cross the ocean of samsara. What's samsara? The whole thing is Ishvara. But it's a way of saying it, right? To help us to cross these bubbles that we've established for ourselves. Therefore, karma yoga becomes a way to give meaning, to put things in the right place, and thereby to prosper. Now, while we are doing our life duties and being participants, guaranteed, this mind, even now that it's heard about karma yoga and life becomes a learning platform, it's going to resort to its old patterns, guaranteed. Every time it does that, what do? We bring the mind gently back into alignment with Samanya Dharma. This is an ongoing process. Even today, you may do something and you may kind of some words, unfairness, some labeling, some overgeneralizing, some self-blame, some, what else did you write down on a piece of paper that we written down? So many of those patterns, right? Most common patterns that therapists have given, that therapists have noticed in their clients. So it's very valuable, that list. I went through that list one by one, and I looked each one of them in myself. So I encourage you to do the same. It's very powerful. Okay? So every time we catch ourselves, we need to bring ourselves back. And there's a story to demonstrate this. A very short story. So there was a son who was told by his father to take a bucket and go to the well and get the water. And the son followed the instructions. And as he came back, half of bucket was emptied out because there was a hole. That's the only bucket they had in the village. So the son was very discouraged. So he had to go back to the well. And then again, he came back again, half of a bucket of water. And he kept doing this on and on. He got very frustrated. Dad, this water is leaking. But the father applied this instruction. He said, son, at least the bucket is clean, and at least you brought half of a bucket back. In other words, there is always a hidden benefit in all things. This is what it means to give a meaning to life where you cannot fail. Otherwise, oh, half of a bucket, it's not good enough. Oh, there's a hole, that's not good enough. Oh, it's just nothing's good enough. The father applied wise words. Where is the hidden meaning that I'm missing? I think this is called negative filtering, right? Where we filter out all the positives. I think this was called, negative filtering, And we always look at the negatives. So the father maybe applied this. He says, hey, where's the positive here? Therefore, karma yoga is your way to make life much more enriching, where you just can't fail. Isn't this a lovely way to live? Where from now on, no effort goes to waste. No effort is a failure. You are constantly succeeding, no matter how little. Why? Because this is my teacher, and it is helping me to come one step closer to the Lord. And what can be more bigger than that? Nothing, because that's the only thing. Ishvara is the only thing. Therefore, next week we will delve deeper into the process of karma yoga. Purnamadav, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate, Purnasya, Adaya, Nam Eva, Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.